And with that being said, in terms of setting that framework, let's dive into a much more deeper subject, which is the management side, the cash flow. There's a lot of different terms you can throw out there with this, but this is where the rubber meets the road.
Nitty-gritty.
This is where, you're trying to identify, you're like, okay. In fact, I've heard a lot of, sayings that, it's not really how much money that you make that matters. It's actually how much money that you keep that matters, and in that sentence in itself, there's a lot of nuances that helps you to be able to keep money, and understanding the difference between inflows and outflows and things like that. One of the cool things that I realized in doing my studies about personal finance and things like that is this rule called the 50-30-20 rule. The 50-30. What is the 50? We'll tell you what the 50-30-20 rule in a minute is here. But what I really liked about it is once you've identified your financial goals that we talked about, and then you've identified your needs and wants, the 50-30-20 rule really just falls in line and helps you essentially start tracking your expenses and making sure that your money is going to the right sections, right? Am I correct on that?
That's such an important concept to grasp, and like you say, it's not all dependent on income. If you look, there's famous cases out there, like MC Hammer, for example, where your income could go up, but your spending could go up just as fast, if not even faster. And then like all these famous people hear about facing bankruptcy, even though they were making millions and millions of dollars a year.
Right, athletes, And
they, I think there's more of a push now in certain, at least in certain sports to provide financial advising and counseling to these professional athletes, because it's an easy thing to do, right? You see more money coming in. So that's why, financial coaches and others like to use these general rules of thumb. And this one, I think the 50-30-20 rule, if I understand correctly, was coined by Elizabeth Warren, who's something of an expert in consumer financial protections. If I'm not mistaken now.
Nice. Yeah, because I know, when I stumbled upon this term and I realized, so you're telling me I can break down my expenses into essentials and non-essentials, and understanding that 50% of my income should go to those essential expenses.
Yeah, hear that? Right? That's the 50%, listeners. 50% towards essentials.
30%, right? So that 50-30-20. And that's that breakdown where 30%, hey, once you start allocating your funds and saying, okay, well, 50%, yes, those goes to the important ones, 30% to the fun, I can have fun, I can allocate fun, essentially, right? And once you start understanding that, and then 20% into debts, investments, savings, things like that. That pretty much then gives you this opportunity to really prioritize, right, with your expenses, and it gives you that clarity.
Yeah, it's independent of your income. It's just a general kind of proportions that are recommended. So again, that's half that's going towards essentials, and that can be pretty. We got to get pretty nuanced here. Like we were saying, like eating out at that $100 restaurant, even though food is an essential, we got to make sure not to put that in the 50%. That's going in the 30.
Sure.
So having and so being very clear about. What does it need again? That's why that needs versus wants that we talked about in the first part of this podcast is so important. And then the 20, it depends. It could mean different things for different people, right? It depends on your debt situation, depends on your saving situation, and for some of us don't have any investments, but others may have gotten started, or you really you're feeling this 50-30-20 rule, and you say, well, I've got this 20%, and I think I can put some of that into investments. It's a good rule of thumb to go by.
Nice.
Now, it's not to say there's never any exceptions, but in all us financial people, we love those general rules.
Oh yeah. No, I remember when I started utilizing it with my personal finance, I started seeing clarity. as to what was going on with my expenses. And in fact, there are people that say once you've become pretty solid with the 50-30-20, then you can even go there's a 60-20-20 or something like that, where, essentially there's a lot of different ways you can go with it.
That's right.
Once you have that foundation down.
Some folks might have heard of the financial independence movements out there.
Sure. Yeah.
They their whole philosophy is, keep it very strictly to needs, and then everything else that's not a need, all towards savings, right? Because
sure.
the idea behind a lot of these folks have podcasts or blogs like Mr. Money Mustache and those people, and their whole thing is, we want to retire as early as possible, and,
sure.
and we want to prioritize the savings piece. So they probably wouldn't do the 50-30-20 rule, but they're all alternatives. But generally speaking, I would say it's a formula that a lot of people have found success and stability with.